afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining the latest Boutique Hotel News webinar, today in partnership with Agilysys. And we are going to be talking about whether your hotel packages are leaving money on the table. My name's Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News, and we are an online global multimedia platform covering boutique, lifestyle, luxury hotels and branded residences. As I mentioned, today's webinar is in partnership with Agilysys, an all-in-one hospitality system for hotels, casinos, resorts, cruise lines, and restaurants. And today we have a really short video for you. And further details about Agilysys have been popped into the chat if you would like to learn more. So shortly, we'll spend around 45 minutes chatting with our panelists today. We do have time to take questions from the audience. We like to make these webinars as interactive as possible. So if you do have any pressing questions or queries, submit these using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. I'll get round to asking those as and when I can. This webinar is being recorded, so every registrant will get a copy of that recording within 48 hours. And if you do have the time, right at the end of this webinar, a short survey will pop up on your screens. We're always looking to improve, so if you can provide any valuable feedback, we'd be really grateful. So before we get started, here's some context helping to frame today's conversation. And Katala Consulting outlined some common revenue management mistakes that hotels were making. And at the top of that list is the set and forget trap. And this is the idea that hotels are setting prices based on historical data or market averages and then leave them unchanged, which doesn't work today when we are in a very dynamic environment. And so for a 50-bedroom boutique hotel in a mid-tier city, this set and forget trap and those poor pricing decisions can actually cost up to £20,000 per month. And so some tips around that include at least review your pricing twice a week. Build your pricing calendars with demand assumptions and event overlays. And you can also protect higher rates with rules around length of stay, cancellation, and channels. And on the next screen, some examples of what our hoteliers are up to. So the Headland Hotel in Cornwall introduced a storm watching package. I believe it must have been about 2 or 3 years ago now, Lee, which has been hugely successful. And I imagine that the quieter months of January, packages can really help to play a really important role with helping to capture that all-important demand. And as reported by National Geographic, at least a third of the hotel's winter guests check in specifically for that storm watching package. And at Best Western Hotels GB, the group offers a Rent a Revenue Manager service, or RRM for short. And this is for member properties to leverage that really tailored, specialized support. And those three areas that a revenue manager will focus on include RevPAR index, and direct bookings. And to give you an example, a case study that I pulled off the website, a hotel that joined the program in April 2024 saw a 48% increase in RevPAR from that April to July, with a 39% growth in RevPAR index. And that accounted for or represented about a 30% year-on-year ADR increase. So I hope that gives you a good flavour as to why we are here. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists for today. I'm going to ask each to introduce themselves individually, and for ease, I'm just going to move from left to right as per the PowerPoint slides. So Matthew, let's kick off with yourself. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Eloise, and great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's much appreciated, and certainly for seeing that video. Spend is unique in the world, and we're really excited to bring something unique to the market. And I'm sure we'll delve into that over the next 30 minutes. But from my perspective, I have been in this industry for some 30 years. So ex-hotelier and then into the technology space, and now in control of sales for the UK and European regions for Agilysys. I love what I do. I'm very passionate, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today.
Thank you, Matthew. Lee, over to you. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite to join Eloise. I'm looking forward to the conversations we'll have today. I'm the commercial manager at the Headland, and I oversee the sales, marketing, and revenue management functions. We're an independent hotel, so it's really interesting to hear Andrew's experience from Best Western.
Thank you, Lee. And I've got a great segue. So Andrew, over to you.
Thanks, Eloise. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Glover. I'm Head of Revenue for Best Western here in the UK. So we're a membership organisation of 230 hotels across England, Wales, Scotland and the Channel Islands. So we have a range of destinations and a range of different business types across the country operating that we look after. So looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. So just to flag, all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers are in the chat. We do have a lot to get through. I'm hoping that we do get through it all today, but if we don't, LinkedIn profiles are there. Connect, continue that conversation. It's an important topic here. So I'm going to come back to Matthew to kick off with, because the question of today's title today's webinar, are your hotel packages leaving money on the table? So we are going to address that right off from the start of this conversation. So what are those indicators that a hotel's package offerings are leaving money on the table? What are those signs that we should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things really in terms of positioning. First is we definitely see customers that, have somewhere in the region of 20 to 30% deficits really in revenue through just creating static promotional material. And really, we probably just want to take a step back first outside of our industry. We as consumers have become acclimatized, conditioned, whatever we might want to call it, to other consumer engagements. What I mean by that is perhaps whether it be entertainment, travel, retail, we're now very accepting and very familiar with how other verticals, other industries interact with us. And a prime example there would be, I don't know, an Amazon in the retail, an Uber in travel, Netflix. They all know what we want to do before we ultimately want to do it. And a lot of the time they get it quite right. But when we walk through the doors of our hotel, for the most part, and there are some very special people that work in our industry, but for the most part, that engagement level drops. All right. And that engagement level drops purely because of the technologies that are available to us in our ability to provide, meaningful experiences, personalization, engagement to customers. And it's not an issue with the people. We have some very, very talented people in our organization who I'm sure we'll hear from very shortly in terms of their aspirations and successes they've had. But it's important that they have the tools to do the job. But quite frankly, revenue absolutely declines because, those packages that we create tend to be fairly generic. All right. They tend to be blanket packages that aren't necessarily tailored to individuals per se. They may well be tailored to demographics, but they're not necessarily tailored to individuals. And if we take those learnings from our consumer lives, if we tailor and we personalize, then we're more likely to get that return. And I'll perhaps come on to maybe later in this call in terms of some of the results we've seen. But look, it's really important that we focus on the guests. But yeah, we've got a lot to do, I think, when it comes to packages in the UK and how to better ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, I want to ask the same question to yourself, if I may, because you oversee, I think you mentioned 230 hotels within the BWH GB portfolio. What are those early telltale signs that a package is leaving money on the table?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a twofold answer. This one, there is the packages we create and how we manage them, and then there is they kind of inspiring people to come to your hotel. And I think alluded to that historically. I think it was mentioned around generic packages, and you still see a lot of that out there. A flat fixed rate, which won't necessarily work over a long period, with an uninspiring offer. And sometimes the packages are created sometimes for the sake of creating the package and having the box ticked, but actually sometimes they can be too heavily discounted on a static rate, which is actually over some periods displacing business in some locations. So if not handled right, can do more harm than good. And we know now people are increasingly looking for experiences and a reason to come. And I always say that when they talked about building Dubai, they said build it and they will come. It's about giving people a reason to come to your location and sell it through the right channel. Think who we're marketing to. Are we getting to the right demographics out there? So I think we are evolving in terms of packaging. We're certainly seeing a lot more dynamic pricing happening in the package segment, which is really helping hotels control and optimize. And I think long may that continue as we move forward. But I think being inspiring and giving people a reason to come, but not just making sure we're marketing to the right demographic for those, and then manage the availability effectively, dynamically. And that, I think if that's not done, you will quickly see displacement. What you're trying to achieve with the package is not happening. So you might be trying to, grow occupancy of those shoulder night periods, etc. And all of that will just stand still with a flat, uninspiring package.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to Matthew, if I may, because we've got a lot of, if not speakers from independent hotels, but a lot of independent hotels tuning into this webinar. So looking at those smaller boutique properties, how can they realistically assess how much revenue they could gain from that personalized and inspiring package?
Sure. I mean, if there's a lot of independent hoteliers on the call, I think probably the first thing I'm going to say is that I think these guys did a fantastic job post-COVID. All right. Before COVID, we were obviously reliant on OTAs and still are, right? It's never necessarily going to go away. But I think as we came out of COVID, it was important for hoteliers to really double down and think about those secondary spends, not just about the rates that came from rooms. And that secondary spend, that ability to maybe shift that mindset from the room to the guest, I think became even more paramount. And I think we're now seeing that shift necessary move to think about the property in a holistic view, because there's significant revenue to be had from all aspects of what a hotel offers, and that room component is ultimately just the start of it. But if we can capture that at the beginning, then that's a good thing to do. And by focusing on the guest, and we talk about this a lot. And I think when I was in hotels, if I thought about the guest more than I did the room rate pre-event, then I think we'd have definitely had some fantastic successes. But there's an inherent problem, and I guess that inherent problem is the ability to make that evangelists thinking that we as individuals have become a seamless journey within the technologies that we also rely upon to operate in the hotel space. And if we have that capability, and we have the I guess modern way of thinking, then we're going to succeed. And I've had hand-on experiences now of how organizations that we work with have shifted the, I guess, balance between room revenue and guest revenue to be almost equal 50-50, which is incredibly impressive when we think that still, generically speaking, in our markets, we're all about average daily rate. And I tell you what, once we've done average daily rate, we'll then think about trying to throw in a spa treatment, a nice experience on the beach, or whatever is relevant, dinner in the restaurant, to really try and maximize the spend. But ultimately, we need the data, right? We've talked about data for years. Before that, it was Wi-Fi, then it was data, and surely we'll talk about AI shortly as well. But you fundamentally need a base platform of data, not just a collection of siloed information that we take the first name, last name, and email from, but we've got to obviously interrogate that data in a meaningful way. And the other aspect is, if we have loyal customers, and I'm sure there are many, many loyal customers that come down to Newquay. I mean, I will travel there certainly for holidays. If the guest is knowingly going to receive something that's personalized or of interest to them, then as individuals we're much more at liberty to allow our data to be used by someone else. And so I think in summary, it's really, look, you've got to look at those technologies that you use and how easy it is to pull data together, use that data in a meaningful way, and from that data understand the true inherent behaviors and trends of your customers to determine what packages I can entice them into. Once they walk out your door, the cost of reacquisition or the cost of acquisition in the first place is pretty high these days. All right. So we've got to do everything we can to ensure that they're going to return to my property, not the property down the road, through, again, that sort of bespoke, packaged, tailored, personalized approach. And again, maybe in a moment, I'll talk about how we can perhaps do that seamlessly through the technology we provide. But yeah, let's food for thought for some of our boutique hoteliers. But they've done a great job coming out of COVID and ensuring that they're looking after their customer in a way that's probably never been seen before.
Thanks, Matthew. And I think this is a great springboard to bring Lee into the conversation here. So thank you for waiting so patiently, Lee. I'm curious to talk about those trends and guest behaviors that you're seeing, and how those travel behaviors, booking behaviors are starting to evolve. So Lee, what are you seeing in terms of how those guest expectations are shifting, particularly when it comes to that personalized, really inspiring, compelling package versus something that you're looking just for convenience?
Yeah, I think, like Matthew and Andrew have mentioned already, gone are the days where a dinner, bed and breakfast package is going to fill your hotel for you and hit those revenue budgets. We're rarely seeing a move from our standard packages. We've got our core packages like storm watching and festive that are successful year after year because they hit a certain market and they hit it really well. But we are finding our guests are moving away from packages. And the challenge for us is to be able to offer that concierge style service that they get when they book over the phone, when they check in. It's being able to add those bits on for them in the online process. As an independent hotel, we're not very reliant on OTAs, thank goodness. But just under 60% of our guests do still phone to book. And obviously that needs to be reduced, but they're never going to use online if they don't get the same service. So that is the biggest challenge for us. And that's certainly over the last 12 months, that experience led, want to be able to pick and choose what they want to add on. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told you're having dinner this day and spa that day. They like to choose what they can add on and where they're going to be. But I think the point that Andrew made about RevPAR and rates, that is so important. So we've done a lot of work, especially off-peak demands, on building a package that includes a discounted rate, but it shows added value. So you are sacrificing a bit of your room rate, but you're growing your RevPAR because you've got the bodies in the building to spend in the restaurants and the spa.
Mm-hmm. And something I think it might have been Andrew who touched on, I think even Matthew as well, around demographics and how are we selling to the right demographic in order to ensuring that they are booking. Lee, you mentioned I think 4 packages that the Headland now offers.
Yeah.
Are there any like guest segments that are more likely to respond to certain packages versus those generic offerings like the bed and breakfast, say?
Yeah, absolutely. Spa hasn't changed for us. We still have a good appetite for spa guests, and I think that's probably across all the spa hotels. Something it's not new to us. I know Andrew offers some packages at their hotels, is golf. We've always focused our sporting packages on the surf school that we have on site. And this year we've spent a lot of time building relationships with the local golf clubs. For any golfers out there, we've got 3 top 100 courses within an hour of the hotel. And we've spent a lot of time building relationships with those golf clubs and agreeing favourable terms so we can add a round of those golf clubs into our golf package. And it's something that the guests aren't able to secure themselves, and that's been really successful for us.
A great point, actually. That let's not forget that all these packages have to be done on site. There's probably lots that you can leverage, excursions, exhibitions, museums, etc., that you could probably build in and bundle. Andrew, I'd like to hear your thoughts here around what guest segments do they are responding to what types of packages, and how are you seeing that customization and personalization perform and play out?
Yeah, I think there's different demographics which respond to different elements. I mean, there's a lot of talk at the minute. One of the big trends in the industry is people are looking to stay like a local, so leaning into anything local in your area that you can bring in. But I think in terms of segments who respond to it, some difference will be friendship groups, who are looking to do something together. So they're looking at for something inspirational that they can all do, an experience that they can all do and share. I mean, we've got a hotel at the minute who's bundled something up, and they've got quite a big outside, and they've got individual fire pits with hot chocolate. So at the end of the night, they're going out at night, they've got blankets around them, they've got their own fire pit, a group of friends, and so they're bundling different things that people can enjoy doing together. So I think friendship groups are a real segment which will respond to marketing. The older demographic, the high disposable income retirees who are looking for something to do, and to travel to. We had another hotel which, really successful 2-night package, and Leanna, dinner, bed and breakfast as a whole is going out, but this one included just dinner on the first night of the stay, and then they were free to go out on the second night, and they threw in an afternoon tea package as well. But that kind of older demographic traveling from a distance were liking the fact that they didn't have to worry about where they were going to eat when they arrived at the hotel. They didn't have to go out and try and find a restaurant, but they had the next day to explore the town and the surrounding area, and then book out the second night, potentially in a restaurant. The special interest groups are always a key, but they're a bit more niche. So, depending on what your hotel offers and where it is, if you're lucky enough to be near something that you can lean into in terms of special interest, those groups are always really receptive to coming in there as well. But we talk about big milestones, so big milestones in life that potentially less worried about costs. When we talk about packages a lot, we talk a lot about frequency of purchase. And so the less frequency of purchase, the potential higher budget you set yourself. And we've done quite a lot of work over the last couple of years looking at the psychology of pricing and how we can apply that into what we do. And when we talk about packages, it's not necessarily always go straight for a discount. They're looking for a good price, because actually perceived value can be very, very different if it's packaged up correctly, and directing the consumer to book what you really want them to book. And there's lots of tricks and tips and things that you can do to guide people to different packages and product offerings. But a lot of it is around hitting the marketing to the right people, and that's the key thing, really. You know, if you're marketing to the wrong demographic, the wrong interest group with the wrong package, you're gonna have a low conversion. So really understanding who you're marketing to and why, and what their interest is. If you get that right and build up a following, that's key to growing that, because there can be a great way to grow your overall revenue performance as part of a revenue strategy. Packages can be really strong.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to pick up on your note about those with high disposable incomes, and you know, let's face it, there are high spend customers, and we're all trying to target and capture them, right? So, Lee, coming to you for my next question, how are you, or I should maybe rephrase, how can hoteliers best identify and target those high revenue drivers?
I think I'm just repeating what Matthew said, but data. Technology is moving on so much in hospitality. It's still not quite where retail is, but we use so many tools, and all those tools have got analytics and reporting behind them. And I think you have to leverage all that information to help with your decision making. Certainly what we do here at the hotel. We've also aligned our marketing output with our revenue goals this year. So it sounds like such a simple fix, but it is so important in terms of, this is the gap we need to fill. This is what we need to market. Like I said, it sounds really basic, but it's made a huge difference for us this year, just making sure that the two teams are working together towards the same goal, and not just to get clicks and likes on a social media post. Those are probably the key ones. One tool I would recommend is any kind of benchmarking tool that can benchmark you against your competitors, and anything that can help you retarget anybody with high intent. So, you know, if you use Meta or Google advertising, there is so much data in the back end of that. And the retargeting on Meta is reasonably easy to do. So you can really target guests who've shown high interest. You can target, you know, demographics as well, whatever suits your hotel.
Yeah, thanks, Lee.
I have heard the retail comment, as I'm sure we all have, for many, many years. And again, as an ex-hotelier, I want the day to come, right, when we're telling the retail industry, right, how it should be done, not how the retail industry that have operated in a particular way for many years, and we're looking up to them. You know, we're as professional as they are, and it's, you know, it's really time for us to change that, right? And I was also just thinking, when I was listening to Andrew, you know, we're surrounded by packages and bundles, aren't we, in our lives? Even down to the coffee in the local coffee shop, in terms of how we all like our coffee. And even if that's on the app, that's going to be produced from the second point and the second order forward. But we definitely can't get away from tailored orientated experiences until such time as generically we come into our industry, where it's, you know, there's still room for movement, 100% room for movement. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah.
No, let's stay with you for a moment here, Matthew, because Lee mentioned that it is all about data, and it is all about, I think, in your own words, Matthew, interrogating that data so that we know how to manage it effectively. I've asked this question a few times, and I think, Matthew, you highlighted at the beginning that guests may willingly part with their data, knowing that they will receive a truly personalized and genuine experience as a result. So how can hoteliers really effectively use that guest data without appearing intrusive, without trying to go to the masses and collect as much as possible?
Yeah, and I guess that's probably what we see quite a lot of and have done for many years, is that, you know, hotels are sitting on enormous silos of data. And then really it's, well, how do we use this data? And again, I remember from a couple of years back that, you know, well, we've got all this data, but we can only use the first name, last name, and email address because everything else is overwhelming. So it's generally important to have the structure and the foundations in place to ensure that the data we're collecting is meaningful. And, you know, one example for me is, I think, again, paying testament to the professionals in our industry, you know, our marketing peers will do a fantastic job of assessing data and coming up with a campaign at some point post stay. But for me, I'm going to just put it out there really for the audience or the delegates is, you know, how do we use that data when we're in house as well? All right, I think there's a sentiment really that exists that once they've come through the door and they've checked in and they've disappeared, that's it. All right, we know they're going to go and eat in our restaurant, but what else can we do during that 2-night stay that continues to increase revenue in terms of that upsell capability? How do we reach out to them, and how are we being told in the moment in a live environment that maybe, you know, Andrew or Lee or Matthew are you know, sitting in the lounge in the Headland Hotel or another hotel, and actually they're not spending any money at the minute. How can we be alerted to that particular scenario and reach out to them in a meaningful way that may suggest that we could receive some additional income from them? And I think I'm portraying a shift again, really, in terms of the mindset of this industry is, well, analyze data after the stay. All right. What we won't do is analyze the data during the stay. And I spent 10 years in the footballing industry. You know, when a football fan came to a stadium, loyalty wasn't the issue because they were never going to leave their club. But what was an issue was their spend in that hour and a half. All right. What can we maximize in terms of upsell from them in that hour and a half? And then in our industry, well, we've got a few days to try and maximize that spend once they stay. So we should be, again, trying to change how we view in-house guests and how we can increase revenue spend whilst they're in, using the data we've got about their trends and behaviors and their spends, not just waiting 3-4 weeks down the line to create something special as a result of data that's come from 10 different silos. So that's also something that we should definitely be thinking about, something certainly my customers think about now than they ever have before.
I think it goes back to replicating that in-person service, how you use it with technology, because you will know your guest who comes 4 times a year. You know what wine he likes, you know which table he likes to sit in the restaurant. As a team, you do that anyway, don't you? But it's how we replicate that.
Yeah, and again, there's scalability there, isn't there? Maybe in a 20-bedroomed hotel or a 10-bedroom hotel, it's quite straightforward. As you start moving up the ladder of the quantity of rooms, it becomes harder to scale that without leveraging technology, and then using that technology, back to the question, in an appropriate and unintrusive way. And again, if we're sending someone a message that they're interested in, that they're excited about, that they are willing to embrace, the chance of them accepting that uplift in spend or that activity is very high. And again, that's where we've got to make sure the foundations are in place to be able to deliver on that.
Do you think in terms of, oh, sorry, Eloise.
No, please.
Do you think in terms of the guests, there's got to be some transparency for them on how you use the data so they know how you're going to use it and they trust?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, they're in control of that data. They're the ones that tell us if indeed they want us to use that data. But through providing those wonderful experiences and memories, again, people will always be more willing to impart data to ensure that next time or during the stay, they're going to have an unbelievable memory from the experiences within that property. So yes, I think the more trust and credibility that's generated from your guests, the more willing they are to impart data to ensure that the next time around that they have an even better experience. And again, technology allows us to drive that towards the guest in a way in which they're willing to accept. And what I mean by that is it could be a message on an SMS or an app. It could be a verbal conversation because you've done some analysis in the moment and you've approached a regular customer that you know. So again, it's always thinking about how the technology can help drive information and certain metrics towards my dashboard or wherever it might be in property, so I can have meaningful conversations with guests.
I'd like to come back to Lee for a moment here, because we've touched on retail and perhaps what we can learn from retail during this conversation. And yes, one day we will flip that conversation, Matthew. I'm with you on this. But Lee, you've I would describe it as embedded a more retail style booking experience within or at the hotel. How has that changed your ability to upsell and cross-sell and deliver those timely offers?
Before I get to the question, Eloise, I'll just tell Matthew that I have worked in retail and hotels now. And while retail is far ahead with the technology online, their price points are much lower than ours. So we do benefit from our lack of technology. So I wouldn't stress too much.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
In April, we introduced a new booking engine, which allowed us to give our guests that flexibility they've been looking for. So instead of them having to book that traditional package, they can now pick and choose what they want to book. So they can add a spa, they can add a special menu that we've decided to include on the booking engine. They can add the traditional things like a bottle of wine or swans and petals, or all those kinds of things. But we've really just started to experiment with it. And one, some of the extras we've introduced in October, 30% of people who've booked this offer have added extras on, because we've presented it to them in a way that they can choose. So it's giving them that choice of being able to do it, and it's made a huge difference. Guests are really enjoying that flexibility.
Great story. Great story.
And is that across like all the packages in terms of that uptake, that 30% uptake? Like what's the...
This was just on one specific package that we launched for October, but the technology is so flexible that you can create an extra that's linked to whichever package you want to link it to. So if we were we've added a bespoke spa, massage or facial that's linked to a stay. You can only book that bespoke spa massage if you book the actual stay that we want you to book, and it's not something that we offer in the spa usually, so it's a different time, and it's a better value than booking the traditional wave massage or something like that. So it's really understanding where your gaps are as a business, what revenue you're trying to fill, but then also what your guests are looking, and trying to marry the two up in the offer that you can do it. The problem is getting the technology fast enough, because, with calling over the phone, our teams are well trained and they know what to offer and when to offer it. But it's getting that same concierge style service, or, on Selfridge's website or Amazon website, it is always recommending to you what you should add to your basket when you choose something else. And so this is a step in the right direction, but I'm sure it's going to develop from a technology side, but also from a guest expectation side, and then what that delivers in terms of revenue as well.
Did you find your guests is more demanding than ever, Lee, now? Or
yeah, they are very demanding, but not in a bad way.
No, absolutely. I mean, in a positive way, but as
they have high expectations. I think the demand comes in. So traditionally, the way our PMS works is that you have to have dinner on a certain night in the package. You can't, so you have to have it on your arrival night and not on the second night. And that does cause a bit of friction and put some boundaries in for the guests, which, as a leisure hotel, they don't want any boundaries. They just want to dip in and out and do what they want. So building the extras in at the booking process online has enabled them then to go, actually, you know what, I'm going to do the dinner on this night, or I'm going to do the spa treatment on that night, which with our current technology, creating packages for that has been really restrictive.
Understood. Okay.
Let's bring Andrew back into the convo here to talk about, from a strategic standpoint, how you are optimizing revenue across those high demand, but perhaps more importantly, those low demand periods. How are you packaging those strategies to tailor to both?
Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about dynamic pricing versus static pricing, but certainly over those high demand periods, it is absolutely, where possible, packaging up dynamically, and thinking about the channels which we are selling on, and make sure that we're not displacing any other more valuable segments of business. Ultimately, what our hoteliers want is to get a loyal following of direct marketing that they can go back to again and again and again with a good uptake of conversion. But of course, sometimes you need to cast the net a lot wider. So, going to those low demand periods, you are thinking a lot more about ramping up marketing. You are thinking a lot more about the channels you're perhaps making your packages available to, so certainly over lower demand season, it's highly likely, that a hotelier is going to accept that a higher cost of sale channel might be a necessary evil for a period of time, which you wouldn't want over those high season times as well. But I think, in terms of making packages work for those low demand season, it's recognizing where they're going to come in, so it's about using systems which are going to accurately forecast or give you a good idea of what your forward demand is going to look like, so you can get there in early and package something up and then target it. So if you've got a problem with certain days of the week over a period of time, bespoke a package up which is encompassing those need periods to support you through there. But I've mentioned the psychology of pricing. It's something that we talk about a lot, and it's not always about the price point, but the perceived value that the consumer is getting. And when you're tailoring up packages, you can often make something look quite attractive. People like, there was talk, I forget, I was on an event recently, and they were talking about value for money not being necessarily the price, but as long as people felt that they were getting value for the money, it didn't necessarily mean that it had to be a low price. They just felt that they were getting value for the money. If you can tailor something up and package it and point it to the right person over those low demand periods, then you're kind of onto a winning role with those. But there are points seasonally and through, we see different trends across city centres versus rural versus coastal versus resort properties. They all have a bit of a different seasonal demographic, if I can say it. So they will tailor different packages at different times to support their overall revenue base. But it's about understanding your forward demand and where those gaps are going to be, and then plugging that gap with a package which you've got a demographic which will follow with a high propensity to book.
And Lee mentioned earlier about the success she's had with add-ons and extras. I think you mentioned that 30% of those that booked that package in October opted to have in additional extras, which begs the question of where are we, or what are those add-ons that are perhaps underutilized that we could start leveraging more of? And Andrew, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts around what add-ons do you believe that are currently underutilized but have that high revenue potential?
Yeah, I think again, like it's about putting the right thing in front of the right person and thinking, oh yeah, actually, oh yeah, that would be nice. Oh yeah, that would be. And it's you kind of getting to that shopping basket experience, when you're booking, just like when you book a package holiday and it's throwing private transfers at you or extra leg room or room upgrade. It is about creating that shopping basket. So your base price is your starting point, if you will, and then you're putting things in front of people which would match that experience. So room upgrades are easy ones, but where we go wrong often in the industry with room upgrades is not clearly defining what you're getting for your extra money. So if you've got an upgraded room type, it's absolutely calling out what you're getting and having a real distinct differentiation between that lower class room type that the customer might be going for. Because actually, if the bedroom shot looks pretty similar and it includes a bathrobe and some slippers for an additional £55, you're unlikely to go through. But if you're really showing the value and you're saying, wow, actually, for that, we're getting all of this, I am gonna book that. So room upgrades done correctly are one of the bigger ones, certainly, and that's often which, you know, across our portfolio, that's one that is most available to all. So if you've got good spa, if you've got good F&B followings, adding some of those things into there. So if you've got weekend packages going on, it's, you know, you might add some fizz into the room, you might add might add dinner on there, you might add, you know, going down to the spa. But it is about, whilst the add-on is there, it's about making it seem attractive and value for money. So people are putting it in their shopping basket and checking out rather than scrolling through.
Yeah, and Andrew, I think that's where the data comes from again. I think if again, I'm talking generically here, but if people are publicizing upgrade messages that are pretty, you know, much the same across the board without it being tailored, knowing, you know, Matthew's been here the last 10 times, he's accepted 8 upgrades. He always goes for this room and he always spends this amount. If we can move towards that tailored approach, then the likelihood of them accepting upgrades based on previous data, based on that personalized message we've sent them, is something that's very much likely to happen. And I think other departments like spa, that's becoming so much more prominent in recent times. It's an incredible revenue spinner. It has been for many years, but I think it's getting the limelight it rightly deserves over what traditionally would have been a meal for 2 in the restaurant. But, you know, the spa industry is, you know, really improving their visibility, the understanding, and I think through those creation of packages as well, you know, helps the hotel, you know, increase profitability as a result.
I think if people, you know, I mean, I can remember, and this is going back a few years, conversations happening in the tech world saying, oh, in a few years' time, booking a hotel room will be like when you book the theatre, where you actually select the room that you're going to stay in, you know, and we're yet to see that. But, you know, certainly in leisure destinations, if people can get a nice view, you know, potentially on a high floor, looking at what each of those individual rooms and taking, you know, the benefits to them, people will pay a bit more for that if they're booking a weekend breakaway. And I always thought that what a great way to book a hotel that would be. I imagine quite operational, it would be quite challenging if you've guaranteed yourself a particular room number. I can see it would be operationally challenging. But if people can book those and pay for those, well, attribute selling, I suppose you would call it.
It is attribute selling, definitely,
you know. And I think that is something we can all get better at, you know, as an industry. And I think there's, you know, in terms of growing revenues, recognizing what those attributes are, recognizing what is chargeable and what people will actually pay for. That's you know, there's huge value in that, and should be a great focus, I think, for us, really.
We don't have the technology to book a specific room online, but we have introduced a new charge to our guests that we're trialing on a discounted stay at the moment, that if you know the room that you want and you want to stay there the whole night, you charged a little bit more every night to secure that room for you. We didn't do it as a revenue driver. The reason we've done it is so that we don't have all the gaps that you alluded to, Andrew. But guests are going to pay for the room that they want, so we've had very little price resistance on that. So you get charged a preferred hotel bedroom or cottage fee, and if you want a guaranteed room number, then you pay for it now. So,
and I think in addition to that, Lee, in addition to the attribute selling, in addition to creation of the package, it's also important to continue that upselling capability right throughout the journey, pre-check-in, which we'll be familiar with. But again, even down to the extent of allowing that guest to continue to edit and enhance the package that they'd already secured, not to disrupt any of the operational elements in the background. But, you know, as I said again, you know, once they've checked in at the front desk and disappeared, you know, that's that spend from that package complete. We need to continue engaging in a meaningful and appropriate way to ensure that we always can always maximize that spend from that guest throughout their stay.
Yeah.
That tactically reminds me of what we've seen in the airlines, and what you might call the
Exactly.
premiumization strategy.
Yeah.
When I was doing my research for this webinar, I did come across a headline. It was 2021, I think it was, which is why I didn't want to include it, because we like to stay current and all. But the headline was around a strategy called unbundling. And this was the idea that quite literally every part of your guest journey you can charge for. So it was absolutely a strategy inspired by what's happening in the airlines, that you can pay your fee for your bog standard, but if you want to choose your seat, if you want to bring a bag, if you want to bring additional bags, if you want to get upgraded, these are all charged for extras, which I think brings in itself is an altogether different conversation, because when you're in a service industry, how much can you really charge for
Yeah. Yeah.
when exactly?
And I think it's the fee that you set as well. So ours is a nominal fee, but it's more as a deterrent so that we can drive the occupancy, because we don't want gaps around all our best rooms. So yeah.
We have a question from the audience, which is tied into a question that I set aside anyway, around measuring the success of packages. And are you basing this on reviews or on repeat bookings? And the question that's coming from the audience is it's a different slant on this, but how much does the culture of the business and staff empowerment drive hotel packages, such as team feedback, trial and error? How are you utilizing those test periods to understand what works, what doesn't work? Lee, I might come to you on this, because you highlighted that your marketing and sales teams are working ever more closer together. And it also sounds like you're also trialing these new pricing strategies. So how are you, what role does culture play in that, in ensuring that your team members are on board with the vision, and they are, I suppose, honest with that feedback in terms for improvement?
I think as a team, we collaborate very closely. So as a senior leadership team, before we launch any new offer or package, we meet weekly anyway. We review all the data, performance, all those usual things, but we collaborate with the ops team and ask them how they think they could deliver it. Because, in marketing, you can create anything, can't you? A unicorn sounds amazing, but being able to deliver it is more difficult. So I definitely collaborating with the operations team and being open to adjust things. So obviously you don't want to change your messaging too much after something's gone live in a package, but if it really isn't working operationally, it's just making that language change, perhaps for the guests when they're booking, or adapting a process or pricing. I think we're very dynamic in our business. We're very open to changing things as well. So I think it's just those open conversations with the team who have to deliver what we sit in our office and decide is going to work. So.
And one sort of final comment for me, we've talking for 50 minutes, and it's only the first time we've started talking about our team and operationally how they fulfill these packages. It's equally as important for the staff to ensure that these packages being booked or tailored personalized experiences are all seamlessly done. There's not a burden of labor that comes in a result of someone booking 10 different attributes within a booking process, but then those 10 different steps become the burden of the call center staff to then organize it all, and then to engage with the customer, and then to call them back 2 weeks prior because something's changed in the spa, or the golf course tee times change and they're disappointed. It's really important that the technology, and apologies, I do come from the technology angle, but the technology is end to end. All right, it's both pleasing for the customer and it's both pleasing for the operational team, and reduces anything from costs or their own experiences of how they're engaging with the platforms that the hotels use. So everything should be and has to be seamless as we move forward. Let's not keep thinking about the last 10 to 20 years. Let's protect ourselves for the next 10 or 20 years, and that's really key.
I think the key for our packages are, especially with dining and spa, the spa and F&B teams can process everything through their point of sale systems.
Yeah.
And there's no fuss, there's no bits of paper going, this person's getting this on their package and this person's, it's all integrated in the technology, so they don't have to remember everything. If the guest spends more than their package allocation, the till calculates the difference for them. So in that way, it's pretty seamless because of the technology we use. Always room for improvement there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay.
Oh, thanks, team. I did have, we almost got through my full agenda, so bravo. We have unfortunately run out of time, but we will leave this webinar open for an extra few minutes at the end. All the links that have been in the chat, you'll be welcome to scroll up and, for instance, connect with our speakers to follow up this conversation. But I'll just say a very quick thank you to Andrew, Matthew, and Lee for their time. I've just got some closing slides to run through very briefly before we say a final farewell. The next webinar that I'm hosting a week today, how to turn your tech stack into a revenue generator. So would love to see you there. The link to register will be popped in the chat for you to sign up. That's taking place 27th of October, 2 p.m. GMT. Oh yes, let's not forget we moved to GMT as of this coming weekend. And if you're interested in working with us, do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are up on your screen and also popped into the chat. So once again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you found it useful. I certainly did. I've been taking some notes throughout. Once again, thank you to Lee, to Matthew and Andrew for their time and insights. Looking forward to seeing you all next week on the 27th of October. So do keep well, stay dry, stay warm, and we'll see you again soon. Bye now.
At IHM, we believe in the power of connection. We exist to inspire, to inform, and to unite decision makers who are shaping the future of hospitality and real estate. Our why is simple. We believe this industry thrives when people and ideas come together. And we're here to make that happen. So how do we do it? We challenge the status quo by creating platforms that go beyond the expected. We blend intelligent content, curated events, and a strong community into everything we do. Making it easy, accessible, and genuinely useful. From online engagement to face-to-face connection, we are known for being insightful, collaborative, and refreshingly human. We publish 4 leading multimedia brands, each a trusted voice in its sector, delivering breaking news, bold opinions, and fresh trends. We host world-class events, panel discussions, podcasts, award ceremonies, and webinars designed to spark ideas, drive conversation, and create impact. With over 62,000 monthly web visitors, 55,000 email subscribers, and 69,000 social media connections. Our reach is deep and our community is active. We're partnered with the biggest names in hospitality, and we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're looking to grow your visibility, meet the right people, or understand where the market's heading, read, watch, listen, and meet. Do it all with IHM.